thank you. Yes, I think Sarah said everything. So what I'm going to do is do a bit of a discussion about combined arts and touring, actually, because I think I talked about this a little bit when I spoke at the conference last year. And last year at this point, it was a very, very difficult point where I think we'd all begun to realise what was ahead of us. So I thought it might be interesting just to consider where we've all got to now, and actually the journey we've gone on, and what is still to come, actually. So what's happened since last year? Well, for the Arts Council of England, and I realise this is a very English-centric presentation, we produced in November Achieving Great Art for Everyone, which is our 10-year strategic framework. And within there, touring is explicitly named as one of our priority areas. And it's named in relation to our goal to see more people experiencing and being inspired by the arts. And that was really important for us to see touring as a priority. And it's named again as one of our priorities of work for the next 4 years. Through the investment strategy that we then went through at the end of year, finishing it in March, we then committed substantial funding to touring through the national portfolio organisations. That included adding some lottery funding with the grant and aid in the NPO portfolio in order to support a wider range of touring organisations. In addition to that, we're also developing a strategic lottery programme for touring, which we'll announce more on in autumn. I'm afraid I can't say anything further at the moment, and I know that's very difficult. But we will be announcing more about that in autumn, and we're expecting that to be up and running next year. This is quite a substantial investment for us within what we've all said is a challenging economic environment. And so we do expect to see a substantial return for this investment in terms of public value. This means, of course, that we really need to see touring working and connecting with people across England. Small-scale work, such as rural touring, has a particularly important role to play in this, as it has the potential to be programmed in a whole variety of places, both professional arts venues and community spaces, for different groups of people, for example, in terms of age range or social groupings. Now, I also wanted to say something about combined arts as well and what happened to that during the investment strategy. And I think combined arts is a term that doesn't exist in Wales. And in England, we have combined arts is a sixth art form. So we have theatre, music, dance, visual arts, literature. And combined arts is a portfolio of organisations that use multiple art forms to achieve their aims. So that includes art centres, it includes festivals, it includes all of our rural touring circuits as well. And we had a number of successes within combined arts. And I just wanted to talk a bit about that in terms of the context in which we place rural touring circuits within our portfolio. So some of the new organisations joining our portfolio next year within the National Portfolio Organisations include Manchester International Festival, which is going on at the moment, Liverpool Arabic Arts Festival, Durham Festivals, the Inside Out Festival in Dorset, which is an outdoor arts festival. We've got the Pound Arts Trust as well in the southwest, which is a festival and arts centre and a rural touring circuit. We have a new building in Corby, an area which had very little arts engagement previously, called the Cube. We also have more participatory arts organisations, such as People United in the southeast, Enteleki in London, which works in a sort of multi-generational way, in particular bringing older people together with younger people. In the West Midlands, we've brought Imagineer into the portfolio, and Imagineer are one of our artists taking the lead organisations, and they specialise in doing fantastic outdoor arts pieces. And their piece for Artists Taking the Lead is Godiva Awakes, which is a large puppet of Godiva that's going to come down the motorway towards London. And we also in London have brought on the Bureau of Silly Ideas, who create and tour Silly Ideas. So that's the range of combined arts organisations that we have, and I think that they have some very strong similarities. The first is, it really is about bringing art to people within their community. And that's as true of Manchester International Festival as it is of the Pound Arts Trust. The sort of work that's going on in Manchester now previously would not have happened. It would only have happened in maybe an Edinburgh Festival or in London. But we really, really want to support that kind of fantastic international work also in Manchester. And it's had an amazing effect on the city from an international standpoint. It's also really important with combined arts that combined arts organisations can use any kind of art to reach people. They have an amazing flexibility. They're not tied to a particular art form or a particular style of work, which means they can change the kind of art they offer to suit different people, different times, and different ways of working. And that's become more and more important over time, actually. And you're now seeing even what were single art form organisations, like producing theatres or visual arts galleries, themselves offering different kinds of art. Because I think what people realise is you need that flexibility in order to reach different people. I think what's also really important about combined arts is that we fund some really, really important buildings, including the South Bank Centre and the Royal Opera House. But it's also not about buildings all the time. It's about outdoor arts. It's about work taking place in different spaces. Often combined arts organisations colonise spaces. They work in partnership with local authorities, with people who run different buildings, with different kinds of infrastructure in order to bring art to different places. And again, that's become more and more important. And I pick up what Sarah said about our event culture. And I think you saw it around the ticketing issue around the Olympics, actually. Everybody wanted to be at the Olympics. Everybody knew they could see it on television, but that wasn't really enough. People knew they would experience something different by being there. And that's what we're finding more and more with art as well. People absolutely know they have a fantastic digital offer. They have more and more access to work within their homes, and within other spaces as well. But people still want the communal experience of seeing something, experience something with other people. And touring and combined arts has an amazingly important role within that aspect of our work. I also just wanted to say something about combined arts in the sense that because they tend to be multi-art form organisations, they work across different art forms, they often don't produce work themselves. They programme or present work that other people have produced, which means, of course, that they can just take a very wide range of work. And I think it's really quite useful to ask ourselves, and this really applies to rural touring circuits as well, why we would fund an organisation that presents or programmes work rather than producing work. Because often with arts councils, people assume we fund artists and that we fund work being produced, but that's not always the case. And I think the reason why we fund organisations that present and programme work is because they have an amazing link to their community, and they can be the voice of the community in the arts programming and commissioning and producing world. And they're often the cultural brokers between communities and artists, and they have a very, very important facilitative role to play between those two aspects. If we fund organisations to programme work, they can develop long-term programmes and they can take more risks. Now, risk will mean different things for different kinds of organisations. But often it means, particularly in terms of different kinds of art forms, being on the front foot and always looking outward, always looking to what you can do next. So if the work isn't there that organisations think is really appropriate and suitable, it's going outside and finding it and developing it and co-commissioning it. And we've seen that across all of our combined arts organisations, from the Lowry, from Warwick Arts Centre, right down to a wide range of rural touring circuits that we fund. And I would go back to combined arts and touring being a very important interlocking place within the Arts Council, because it's both where the presenting organisations sit, which often programme a lot of the touring work, and also, of course, in touring, we then have an overview of all the producing companies we fund to tour work as well. And getting a better relationship between the two of them is really, really key. So I think, just to echo the points that Sarah's made, for me, in terms of looking forward, the role of the NRTF and the rural touring circuits, I think there's three quite important areas. I think it is about looking outwards I think you're a fantastic internal network, but of course you're also multi-networked in all sorts of different ways, across art forms, across landscapes, across geographies, but we also know touring is also about an attitudinal issue as well. It's about breaking down attitudinal barriers to different kinds of work. And I think that the NRTF and Royal Touring Circuits, for example, in the relationship with Decibel that you've developed over a number of years, I think have really led the way in that. I think it's also about that really important long-term sustained communication between the artists, producers and the promoters. And that can take a variety of ways. There's quite a lot of co-commissioning going on, but it's also not about just that. It's about the eyes wide open. It's about introducing artists to come and experience something in a village hall. It's about letting them know what's on there. It's about letting them know about opportunities. It's about letting them do script readings there as well. It's about those long-term small interventions that can have a really, really big impact on the final quality and appropriateness of the work that we produce for all of our different contexts. And the other thing I would say, and I know this is a little bit contentious, but I think it's fantastic that touring is now centre stage within our policy work. But within that high profile comes responsibility, and we've really got to deliver on what we say that we're going to do. And if we say that we're going to reach people across in England, we've really got to have the evidence to show that we're doing that. And I think that means across all of the touring work that we fund, we've got to make sure that we're documenting and talking and evidencing that work. And I know with the Royal Touring Circuits that are currently RFOs, have been very, very gainfully completing Excel spreadsheets for us every year with all of the touring work that they've undertaken. And that's been quite problematic and quite difficult. It's never an easy thing to have to fill in lots of spreadsheets. But it's been really, really valuable for us. And one example of that is with our Arts Council members, so with Council Committee members, they've suddenly got very, very interested in maps. And they've been asking me for lots and lots of touring maps to show where touring is going. Well, without the postcode data from the Royal Touring Circuits, Royal Touring would have been missing from those maps. We would simply have had one dot to show where a touring circuit happened to be based, but we would have had no evidence about where the work was absolutely going. So the fact that we had that data meant that we could show it to people and say, look, this is the spread of work. And I think that's something that we'd really, really like to continue with. So I think that's all I'd like to say at the moment, but thank you very much and continue with the good work. Thank you.